Morning folks, Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. Stay with me, got another video coming right now. You're going to see me use a lot of different pieces of kit throughout the course of 900 or 1,000 videos before it's over with, and the reason for that is several things. A, if I haven't tested it or used it, I can't tell you whether it's good or bad. I'm not going to base my opinion on what someone else says. I'm going to base my opinion on what I've used and what I've tested. Then I can tell you whether that product is good or bad, or what my honest opinion is of that product. The other thing that I want you to understand is that you don't necessarily have to go out and buy the most expensive kit on the planet, and just because I show it in a video doesn't mean that I'm saying, hey, you need to go out and buy this. I'm showing you an option. Understand that I spend a vast majority of my time in the woods, so gear for me has to be as good as it can be because it has to last me. If I'm going to spend a lot of money on a piece of kit, and the kit that I showed in this video probably has $1,000 in it, if I had to guess, but a lot of people pay $1,000 for a whole lot less than something that's going to last almost their lifetime. So what I want you to understand is that base your kit on your individual needs. If you don't need something that's going to last 4 generations, buy something that's going to last 2 years. Buy what's within your budget, but always bear in mind what your end use of that product is going to be, and base your judgments on what's individually needed for you in your environment, in your situation, on your budget, and for what you plan to do with that piece of gear. Morning guys, Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. What I thought I'd do today is I wanted to kind of go over the kit that I basically carry most of the time with me into the woods. And when I carry a kit into the woods, I'm carrying that kit for anything from an overnight stay to a week or more. And if you understand the elements of your kit and you understand how to use those elements of your kit, and you have a basic working knowledge of the landscape and your environment, you shouldn't have to carry a whole lot to effectively do a whole lot. And I think that's part of bushcraft that people fail to understand. If you are bushcrafting, and we're not talking about survival situations or survival scenarios or zombie apocalypse or the brown stinky stuff hits the fan. What we're talking about here is I'm planning to go out here. I'm planning to stay for a few days. I'm going to hike around. I'm going to do some camping. I'm going to do some enjoying myself around the fire. And I'm going to do some hunting on the side so that I can eat some fresh game. If I'm bushcrafting, I have to have a knowledge of the landscape and a knowledge of my environment to craft the things that, some of the things that I need. So I'm going to carry the items that directly affect core temperature, comfort, and a couple convenience items. And beyond that, I'm going to bush craft or wood craft the other items that I need. And that's an important thing to understand. I see too many people talk about bushcrafting and they carry, this giant packload of crap, honestly, that they don't need. And that's where the 5 and 10 C's mentality comes in. And if you've got those 5 C's covered properly and the other 5 C's to make up your 10 C's, there should be nothing that you can't create or do with those pieces of kit and some type of firearm, traps, or bow, or fishing rod, or some way to conveniently capture or kill game animals that you can eat. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a kit right here that I've got that I would carry for a day to a week to a month. This kit will sustain all of that with no problem, and it doesn't weigh any more than probably 30 pounds. And I like to keep my kit weight down as much as I can, but again, you reduce the weight of your kit by reducing the amount of items that you carry, not the weight of certain items. And that's a key element to understand, because people talk about, oh, I wouldn't want to carry an 8-pound tarp around. Why wouldn't you? It's going to last you forever. And if you're not carrying, 6 pounds of other garbage that you don't need, then it's the same as carrying a 2-pound tarp as far as I'm concerned. So let's start off with the C's, and we'll go through that a little bit at a time. We'll walk right down the line with what I've got in this pack, and I think you'll understand that you can do pretty much all you need with what I'm carrying at 30 to 35 pounds. Okay, so let's start off by understanding that we're going to carry redundancies. We're going to have multiple items, and I like to carry my stuff tool heavy. So let's talk about first our cutting tool elements of our kit. Well, we have several cutting tools at our disposal. We have a regular hunter's axe, which is about 18 to 20 inches overall. We talked about that in the axe video. In our haversack, we also carry a Baco Laplander folding saw. Now if it was dead of winter, really cold, lots of snow, I'd want a little bit bigger axe probably, and a bow saw of some sort. But again, if I'm going to go with those options, I'm probably going to want conveyance. So these options will do what I need. Now, I have a sheath knife on my belt. This one happens to be a Kephart design knife that's made out of a high carbon steel. It meets pretty much all of my requirements as long as I have an axe, because it only has a 4.5-inch blade. But it is full tang, high carbon steel, 90-degree spine, non-coated, and it's sharp as a razor. This thing will actually shave hair off my skin. I keep my knives that sharp. Okay, along with a belt knife or a sheath knife, I also carry a folding knife or a jackknife, and this one happens to be a Bear & Sons Cutlery Trapper model. And a lot of knives are the same no matter who manufactures them. You have Trapper model, Hunter models, Stockman models, Sodbuster type models. This happens to be the Trapper model. It has 2 blades on it, one more of a whittling type blade, and then you have more of a skinning type rounded blade here. This one happens to be made out of carbon steel, and it's marked made in the USA CS for carbon steel. It's made out of 1095 high carbon steel. Bear & Sons Cutlery makes this knife. It goes along with the mentality of, can I hit this thing with a rock and drive sparks off of it? If it's high carbon steel, I can do that. So it just gives me that more versatility of my knife. I don't like stainless. So I carry that in my pocket. Okay, so combustion. In my haversack, I carry a large ferrocerium rod. That's like my backup rod in my haversack, so if I lose all my other stuff, I always have a fire starting implement on me, and I always carry a lighter in my pocket. Now, in my backpack, I carry a tinder bag, what I call a tinder bag, and basically it's just an oiled bag, an oiled linen bag that has a combination of fat wood, candles, and birch bark, river birch bark. So that gives me a tinder bag that I can put inside my oilcloth, or inside my oil skin or oiled canvas backpack, keep it pretty dry, and I'm always going to have that dry tinder source if I need it inside that pack. And that's important to me. So I keep that in one outside pocket of my bush pack. And then of course this is in my haversack. Now, inside my bush pot is where I generally carry, whatever type bush pot I'm carrying, is where I generally carry most of my other elements of fire. I carry several pieces of cut down fat wood in here, another ferrocerium rod in here, with some lamp wick, and this is a tubular lamp wick that's actually pushed up onto the ferro rod to help keep it from oxidizing, which also acts as a protectant and a tinder source, because I can char the end of that thing and use this for a char cloth situation. I carry some rawhide cordage in there for making bow drill fires. I carry some regular 36 bank line in there for making bow drill fires. I carry a flint and steel kit inside here, and this steel here happens to be an Essie Rowan model, and this is a new thing that Essie's come out with, and I already told him I'm going to knock this off and make one that's shaped like an arrowhead for a Pathfinder fire steel, and he was all for that. Just so you know, when you see it come out, I'm not copying Essie, I'm stealing it from Essie, and he knows that. Jeff Randall and I are very, very good friends. But what this is it becomes a bow drill handhold, which heats up pretty bad. You're going to need to wear gloves, or you're going to need to put some type of piece of cloth over top of that, because that metal's going to get hot. But it gives you that handhold, which is really the hardest thing to recreate on the bow drill itself, is the handhold and the cordage. It gives you a flint striking device that you can use for flint and steel that throws sparks. And it also gives you a 90-degree edge if you need an extra one for scraping a ferrocerium rod. That works pretty good too. So that's kind of like 3 tools in one, and a piece of flint. And I keep that in a pouch in here as well. Okay. Then I keep my magnifying glass in just an old fishhook tin, which is just the bottom of a piece of binoculars. And then I carry a large charring tin in here. It's got a couple extra pieces of flint in it. It's got a couple pieces of grease wood, and then a lot of charred inner material, everything from, inner barks, from punk wood to inner pith of different types of plants. And we'll talk about that in future videos. And those are all inside this charring tin. And then all of that goes in the bottom on top of a rag in my bush pot. That's also 100% cotton, like a small bandana. And I keep all those things in here so that my fire starting implements are handy when I need them. And then, like I said, that's my main fire kit. This goes in my haversack. Okay. So that gives us basically our combustion element and our cutting tools. Okay, so let's talk about our container element before we move to cover, because we've already got our bush pot out. So our bush pot is our main camp type container. This is what we're going to be boiling our water in, making medicines in, boiling meat in. All of those types of things will be done in this pot. You can see this is just an old aluminum coffee pot. Probably only cost $2 or $3 at a secondhand store. The container that I carry in my haversack is just a Swiss Army officer's canteen. So it's about a little over 1 pint canteen, but it's made out of metal. It has a cork stopper that I can untie if I absolutely had to put the thing in the fire. And it's got an aluminum cup with handles and graduation markers up the side that I can use to drink out of. I keep this inside my haversack and this inside my backpack. And that gives me all the containers I need to take care of my cooking, and my water disinfection, and carrying water over distance needs. Okay, so let's talk about our cover elements. Now, our cover elements obviously start with the clothes on our back, so we have to make sure that we're dressed for the season. Beyond that, we have to be ready for any environmental changes that may come along with that. So what I carry in my pack, or in my haversack I mean, is my oilcloth watch coat. That gives me rain gear. That gives me a wind barrier that I can put on over the top of wool to make sure that I'm protected. And I carry a blanket pin because I'm sitting on a blanket shard. This blanket shard, this wool blanket shard, which is about the size of a twin, but it's hand woven, gives me an extra layer on the outside if I want to use it with a blanket pin. I can then put over the top of that this watch coat if I need to, because it's plenty big enough to do that with. It also gives me a ground pad for bedding to protect me against conduction from the ground, as well as give me a little bit of padded area to sleep on. So it's a multifunctional item. This goes in the bottom of my haversack. This goes in the bottom of my haversack. So there's really not a whole lot in my haversack. There is, obviously my extra cover element right there, my water bottle canteen, my spare ferro rod, my Baco Laplander, and I usually carry a small roll of cordage in there, 36 bank line. And that would take care of all the components of my haversack, other than throwing a pair of winter gloves in there, like a pair of wool gloves for the season. So now, beyond that, let's talk about our cover element. Okay, our cover element really takes up the majority of my pack. And I'll be honest with you, my pack is really a container for my cover element for the most part. I carry an extra wool blanket, a queen size hand-woven wool blanket. Combined with this wool blanket, that will get me below freezing, especially if I have a fire. Without a doubt, no problem, especially if I'm dressed for the season. I've actually slept on top of this wool blanket in front of a long fire in just my Boreal Bushcraft shirt and my wool pants in temperatures down around 15 degrees. So you can do it with a wool blanket. You just have to have the right combination, and 2 wool blankets is always going to be your best bet. One smaller, one larger. Yes, they weigh a little bit, but again, I don't have that much in this kit. The second element of cover is always going to be some type of oilcloth. This happens to be an 8x8 oilcloth tarp, because I have the tarp tent set up over there, so I put this one in my kit. Either one of these will do. Either one of these will be fine. I would prefer the tarp tent for longer term and the 8x8 oilcloth tarp for the short term, but either one of them will work for you. And they will last you for a long time. They're going to not need waterproofing very often. If they need waterproofed again, or you need to do something to treat them, you can treat them with anything from fix and wax to special things that they make to retreat oilcloth with that you can buy off Tent Smith's website. But I've had a lot of my oilcloth gear, like this haversack, for several years and never retreated it, and it's plenty waterproof. So that's not an issue. But these 2 items and this item take up my entire contents of my pack, other than my bush pot. as far as the big pocket of my pack goes, the largest pocket in this bush pack is all taken up by my cover element, and that's fine with me. I have no problem with that. I got 2 outside pockets here. I have 1 pocket in the flap. That's all I need besides a haversack, because I'm not planning on carrying a bunch of stuff I'm not going to use or don't need. That's what bush crafting is all about. So this is my cover element. Then I put all of the ropes and stakes, if I'm carrying them, in this pocket, which is left empty. The other pocket has my tinder in it, and it also has a 22 caliber adapter for my single shot 12 gauge for small game hunting or dispatching on the trap line. Other than that, this pack's pretty empty. There's a couple items in this main pocket up here at the top that we'll talk about as we go down through the seas. So for cordage, obviously I'm going to put all of my ropes and stakes in the side pocket of the bushcraft pack. I usually have at least 25 foot to 50 foot of main line in there, which is usually a hemp rope of some sort, about 9mm diameter of hemp rope, and then I have at least 1 full roll of number 36 bank line. That's usually all the cordage I carry. And then if I have a partial roll of this, I'll put it in my haversack. If all I've got is a full roll, I'll put it in my backpack. Here's my partial roll that came out of my haversack here. You can see that about a quarter of that's been used. So I've got more than enough cordage to last me for a long, long time. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other elements of the kit that I have. I don't have a whole lot of other items in here to discuss with you. I do have my repair kit that we talked about before, which has a couple different size sail needles in it. It has a diamond rod and it has a honing stone. That's important to me to make sure I have that. It also has a small tube in it with some hooks and sinkers in case I need to improvise a fishing situation with the bank line. I have a pair of heavy work gloves and my compass. Those are the things that really go in the top portion of my pack, along with a headlight, and that's pretty much all that's in there. So those elements make up everything that's in my pack, other than spare ammunition, which we'll talk about in a minute, and my firearms. Everything that you've seen is the total of what I would carry. Okay, so let's talk about food gathering. I carry a single shot 12 gauge the majority of the time. This one is modified down to about 19.5 inches, so it's cylinder bore choke. Sacrifice a little bit of accuracy, but it makes it a really good bush gun because it's compact. If I combine that with the 22 caliber adapter, I can use it for small game or anything else that I need to take care of while I'm in the woods. Okay, I also carry a 22 single shot pistol. This is just a cheap El Cheapo model, probably cost $100 at a gun show. Single action, but so far it's never let me down. So it works for me. In a holster that I carry on my belt or my pack if I don't want it on my belt. I carry 100 rounds of Remington Viper 22, and then I carry a combination in here of 12 shells between 6-shot, bird shot, and slugs. So with that combination of ammunition and that combination of firearms, 12 gauge and 22, I can take care of any type of game in North America I need to take care of, as well as dispatching animals on the trap line. And that's what I do most of the time, is I'm out checking trap lines, so I carry these type firearms for that reason, so I can hunt, dispatch animals on a trap line, as well as personal defense for other types of animals that may come along. And I put all of that goes into this bushcraft pack. Okay, and I'm going to put all this stuff together for you and show you this kit. Obviously I can't show you the weight of this kit, but I can tell you now it weighs less than 35 pounds for sure. And like I said, this is long-term sustainment as far as I'm concerned. Okay guys, so there's the pack all packed up. 12 gauge leaned against it, ready to rock and roll. I'd estimate that thing at 30-35 pounds. Over here on the other tree I've got my haversack and my pistol. So factoring in the fact that you got to carry the haversack, the pistol, and the 12 gauge, you're probably looking at carrying 40-45 pounds of equipment over distance if that's what you plan to do. But again, this kit is a sustainment type kit. Once I set my camp up to walk away and scout or hunt, I'm not carrying all this stuff. So I carry it to where I'm going to set up, done. Then I have an empty pack basically. I leave most of my implements there except for an emergency bedroll of some sort and my haversack, take my firearms and go hunt and come back. Well folks, I'm Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School, and we appreciate everything that you do for our family, for our business, for our school, for all the people and folks that are affiliated with the Pathfinder School. Self-Reliance Outfitters. We thank you for your views and we thank you for your comments. We'll be back with another video real soon. Thanks, guys.